As a private pilot, what types of compensation can you receive while you're flying? Well, the regulation generally states that you may not act as pilot in command of an aircraft carrying passengers and property for compensation or hire. It also says that you may not act as pilot in command of an aircraft for compensation or hire. There are a few exceptions, and I'd like to start out with the easy ones as I think they're relatively self explanatory. You could act as a salesperson demonstrating an aircraft to a prospective buyer, and there's some prerequisites for that. You could do search and rescue flights for a government entity, and there's some prerequisites for that. You could also do glider towing, and there's some prerequisites for that. I think a lot of times there's a little bit of misunderstanding about pro rata share or incidental to a business. Pro rata share, we're generally taught, is an even split down the middle sharing of expenses for oil, fuel, and rental fees, and that's relatively correct. However, as a private pilot, when you're doing a pro rata share flight, you have to ensure that there is a common purpose for that flight between you and your passenger. In other words, you have to be the one to dictate the flight. It can't be your passenger dictates the flight. Your passenger can't come to you and say, my grandma lives in the next state over. I'll share the cost with you if you fly me there. That's showing a willingness to accept a flight to transport a person, and you cannot do that. What that has to look like is you have a reason to go to the next state over, and your passenger says, hey, that's where my grandma lives. I need to go visit her. Can we share the expenses? And then you both share the expenses for that flight. That would be a pro rata share where you're both showing a common purpose for the flight. Now, as far as incidental to a business goes, an example of that would be you own your own Cessna 172, and your main job is to inspect oil fields. It has nothing to do with aviation. You enter into a contract with an oil company to inspect their oil fields, and you say, hey, I've got my own airplane. I want to use it to get to these oil fields. It'll help me to get there quicker so that I can do my inspections. And then that oil company can reimburse you for your aircraft. That's incidental to a business. What cannot happen is the oil company say, well, we actually have an inspector too that needs to go to inspect that same oil field you're going to. Can you take them along? That cannot happen because as a private pilot, remember, you cannot be compensated to carry passengers and property for hire. So what needs to happen in that case, even though it's incidental to a business, you're transporting